The morning sun painted my kitchen in stripes of gold and shadow, a perfectly ordinary Saturday in the quiet suburb of Maplewood. The scent of sizzling bacon and the rhythmic tick-tock of the wall clock were the only sounds. I, Linda Carter, was in my element, methodically scrambling a mountain of eggs for my teenage son, Tyler. My husband, Mark, was already on the couch, his eyes glued to a college football pre-game show. It was a scene of comforting, predictable domesticity. That's when the knock came. Not the cheerful, pounding rhythm of Tyler's usual friends, but a hesitant, almost fragile tap on the front door. Tyler, door. I called out, giving the eggs a final, expert stir. No response from upstairs, just the thump of bass from his music. I wiped my hands on my apron, a flicker of mild annoyance crossing my mind. Probably just Josh or Ben forgetting something. I pulled open the heavy oak door, a casual smile already forming on my lips. It wasn't Josh or Ben. It was Kyle Miller, Tyler's friend, yes, but not one of the boisterous, perpetually hungry pack. Kyle was the quiet one, the thoughtful observer with an artist's soul and a shy smile. He stood on my welcome mat, looking utterly broken. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and what looked like tear tracks. His clothes, a faded band t-shirt and jeans, were rumpled, and he was shivering violently despite the mild September morning. In his arms, he clutched a battered, oversized backpack, its zipper strained to bursting. Mrs. Carter? His voice was a raspy whisper, a sound that carried the weight of a sleepless night. Kyle, honey, what's wrong? Are you okay? My maternal instincts kicked in, overriding any surprise. I stepped aside immediately. Come in right now. Tyler's upstairs. He shuffled in, his movements stiff, like an old man's. He stood awkwardly in the foyer, his eyes darting around as if seeing our home, the family photos, the tidy living room, the smell of breakfast, as something from a distant, unattainable planet. Is Tyler here? He asked, his gaze fixed on the staircase. Of course, Tyler, I shouted, more urgently this time. Kyle's here. Mark muted the TV, his reporter's instincts. He'd been a journalist before moving into PR, sensing a story beyond a missed curfew. He stood up, his easygoing demeanor shifting into one of quiet concern. Everything all right, Kyle? Before Kyle could muster an answer, Tyler thundered down the stairs. Kyle, dude, you never texted back last. He stopped short, his eyes widening. Whoa, what happened to you? You look like you slept in a ditch. Kyle's composure, brittle as thin ice, finally shattered. A choked sob escaped his lips. He hugged the backpack to his chest like a life preserver. I didn't know where else to go. Sit down, son, Mark said in that calm, firm voice I loved. He guided Kyle to the kitchen table. I quickly moved the plate of bacon and turned off the stove. Breakfast could wait. This was clearly a crisis. I placed a glass of orange juice in front of Kyle. His hands were shaking so badly the glass clattered against the wood. He took a small sip, then a deep, shuddering breath. It's my dad, he began, his eyes staring blankly at the condensation on his glass. He lost his job again. A month ago. He didn't tell anyone. Not me, not my mum. He just pretended to go to work every day. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I knew Kyle's father, David Miller, a proud, somewhat stern man who worked in logistics. The kind of man who defined himself by his ability to provide. Last night, Kyle continued, his voice gaining a haunted, monotone quality, it all blew up. The mortgage. They haven't paid it in 2 months. The bank sent a final notice. My mum found it. There was this huge fight. Screaming. Things breaking. He flinched, reliving the sounds. My dad just left, got in his car and drove off. My mum was hysterical. She started packing her own suitcase, saying she was going to her sister's in Oregon to get space. She told me to pack a bag, that we'd figure it out later. He looked up, his eyes swimming with a confusion so profound it broke my heart. She was in such a rage, she just threw things in her car. She told me to be ready in 10 minutes, but I couldn't. I just stood in my room, and then I heard her car start. I ran to the window. She drove away. She just drove away. The silence in our kitchen was absolute, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Tyler's mouth was agape. Mark's jaw was set. My hand had flown to my chest. She left you? Tyler whispered, incredulous. Kyle nodded, a fresh tear tracing a clean path through the grime on his cheek. I waited all night. Neither of them came back. No calls, no texts. The power got shut off at about 2 a.m. I just sat in the dark. I packed some stuff, and when the sun came up, I started walking. I walked for 2 hours. I came here. The unbelievable reality of it settled over us. This wasn't a teen drama about a strict grounding or a failed test. This was abandonment. This was a child, our son's friend, left utterly alone in a dark, cold house by parents consumed by their own shame and panic. You did the absolute right thing, Kyle, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I got up and wrapped my arms around his stiff shoulders. He leaned into the hug, a small, defeated weight. Mark was already in action mode. First things first, you're safe here. This is your home for as long as you need it. Linda, let's get the guest room made up. Tyler, grab Kyle's bag, take him upstairs. Let him use your shower. Get him some of your clean clothes. The next few hours were a blur of practical, purposeful activity. It cut through the shock. While Kyle showered, I stripped the guest bed and put on fresh sheets. Mark made discreet phone calls, first to the local non-emergency police line to report a minor child abandoned, then to a lawyer friend to understand the immediate legal landscape. Tyler, for perhaps the first time in his life, acted not as a brotherly rival, but as a true protector, quietly offering Kyle his favorite hoodie and a pair of sweatpants. The boy who emerged from the shower looked younger, cleaner, but the hollow look in his eyes remained. I reheated the breakfast, now cold, and he ate with the mechanical focus of someone fueling a machine. He'd just taken his last bite when the doorbell rang again. This time, it was a Maplewood police officer, a kind-faced woman named Officer Garcia, and a serious-looking man from Child Protective Services, Mr. Evans. Our living room became an impromptu interview space. Kyle repeated his story with a chilling calmness. Officer Garcia confirmed a missing persons report had been filed for David Miller by his brother earlier that morning. For Sarah Miller, Kyle's mother, there was nothing. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Mr. Evans listened, his expression professionally neutral but his eyes softening when Kyle described coming to our house. The Millers have no immediate family in the state, he said, closing his notebook. Standard procedure would be to place Kyle in temporary foster care while we locate the parents. Kyle's face went ashen. The thought of being sent to a stranger's home, a system, after the trauma of the night, was clearly a new layer of terror. Mark and I exchanged a glance. It was a single, silent conversation, one of thousands we'd had in our 20 years of marriage. He gave a slight nod. What if he stayed here? I heard myself say. With us. We've known Kyle for years. Tyler is his best friend. We have a spare room. We want to be what's called a kinship care placement, if that's possible. Mr. Evans looked surprised but not opposed. You'd need to undergo an expedited home study. It's not instantaneous. We'll do whatever it takes, Mark said, his voice leaving no room for argument. What followed was a week unlike any other in our family's life. Our home became a quiet hub of crisis management. A social worker came and asked 100 questions. Background checks were run. Meanwhile, we tried to create a fragile sense of normalcy for Kyle. He went to school with Tyler. He ate dinner with us. He helped clear the table. But he moved through our house like a ghost, jumping at loud noises, flinching when a car door slammed outside. The unbelievable part, however, was just beginning. 5 days after Kyle's arrival, Mark was working late. The boys were upstairs, supposedly doing homework. I was cleaning up after a silent dinner when the doorbell rang once more. I opened it, and my breath caught. It was David Miller, but it wasn't the put-together man I knew. He looked a decade older. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot and desperate. Linda, he rasped. Is my son here? A surge of protective anger heated my blood. He is. He's safe. Where have you been, David? He swayed on his feet, and for a second, I thought he might collapse. Can I come in, please? I need to see him. I need to explain. Reluctantly, I let him in. He smelled of cheap motels and despair. Wait here, I said, my voice cold. I went to the foot of the stairs. Tyler, can you come down, please? When Kyle saw his father standing in our living room, he froze. A torrent of emotions, relief, fear, betrayal, anger, flashed across his face. Kyle, David whispered, his voice cracking. Son, why? Was all Kyle could manage, the single word loaded with a universe of hurt. David didn't try to approach. He just sank into an armchair as if his bones had given out. And then he told his story. It was a tale of mounting pressure, of shame so deep he felt it was a physical illness, of a paralyzing fear of failure that made the truth seem impossible to speak. He'd driven for hours, he said, parked by a lake, and just stared at the water, thinking of nothing and everything. He spoke of finally calling his brother, of the long, painful talks, of realizing that running was the one failure he could not forgive himself for. I am so sorry, Kyle, he wept, genuine, heaving sobs that shook his frame. I failed you. I failed your mother. I was a coward. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I love you. And I'm going to fix this. I'm getting help. I start a new job on Monday. It's less pay, but it's a job. I've been to the bank. We're going to work something out. He then looked at me. Linda, Mark, thank you. From the bottom of whatever is left of my soul. Thank you for being there for my boy when I wasn't. It was raw, it was ugly, and it was painfully, vulnerably human. Kyle listened, his arms crossed, his body language closed off, but he was listening. And your mother? I asked, the question hanging in the air. David's face crumpled further. She's at her sister's. She's not ready to come back. She's talking to a lawyer, but she's safe. And she knows Kyle is safe with you. That's something. The legal and social wheels turned. With David back, sober and engaged, and with a home study approved, a formal temporary guardianship was arranged. Kyle would stay with us while David stabilized his job and housing, and while he and Sarah figured out the future of their marriage, separately or together. It was a compromise, fragile and fraught, but it kept Kyle out of the system and in a community he knew. Weeks turned into months. Kyle's ghostly presence in our home gradually solidified. He started to laugh again at Tyler's dumb jokes. He helped me cook, revealing a surprising talent for baking. He and Mark would sometimes talk on the back porch, man to man, about things Tyler later told me ranged from college plans to the simple, profound difficulty of being a guy who feels too much. One chilly November evening, the unbelievable climax of our story unfolded. We were all in the living room, Mark, me, Tyler, and Kyle, watching a movie. The doorbell rang. Tyler groaned, pausing the film. I answered. A woman stood there, her face etched with a permanent sadness I recognized from the family photo Kyle kept on his dresser. It was Sarah Miller. She looked tired, but clear-eyed. Hello, Linda, she said softly. May I speak with Kyle? I called him to the door. When he saw her, his entire body went rigid. She didn't try to hug him. She just stood there, her own shame a visible cloak. Kyle, she said, tears welling. There is no excuse for what I did. In my panic, in my rage at your father, I forgot the most important thing in the world, you. I have been in therapy every single day since I left. I am so sorry. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want you to know I am working, every day, to become someone who deserves to be in your life again. She handed him a sealed envelope. I've written you a letter. It says everything I'm too scared to say right now. I'm staying at the extended stay on Route 9. I'm here for as long as it takes. Kyle took the letter, his fingers trembling. He gave a single, tight nod. Okay, he whispered. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. Thank you, she mouthed to me, before disappearing into the night. Kyle didn't open the letter that night. He held onto it, a tangible weight. The real unbelievable moment came the next morning. Over pancakes, Kyle had insisted on making them. He was quiet. Finally, he said, MRS. Carter? Mark, can I ask you something weird? Of course, honey, I said. Would it be okay if I stayed here just until graduation? Even if my dad gets an apartment? Even if my mum figures stuff out? This feels like home. The first one that hasn't felt like it's going to break. Mark put down his coffee mug. Tyler stopped chewing. My eyes filled with tears. Kyle, Mark said, his voice rough with emotion. This is your home. For as long as you want it. Forever, if that's what you choose. The legalities were complex, involving all the adults. But the heart of the matter was simple. David, in his newfound humility, agreed. Sarah, in her painful journey toward accountability, acquiesced. They both saw that their greatest act of love, for now, was to give their son the stability they couldn't provide together. So, Kyle stayed. He became, in every way that mattered, our second son. He called us Linda and Mark, but the meaning had shifted into something deeper, more familial. He and Tyler fought like brothers and had each other's backs like brothers. He graduated high school with honors, his art project on the architecture of home winning a state award. It was a sculpted piece featuring two houses, one fragile, made of cracked glass and shifting sand, the other built of strong, interlocking wooden beams, warm light glowing from within. I was making breakfast that terrible, ordinary morning, thinking my biggest worry was if the bacon was crispy enough. I had no idea I was about to open my door to a profound, heartbreaking, and ultimately beautiful disruption. The unbelievable part wasn't the abandonment, though that was shocking. It wasn't the return of the parents, though that was dramatic. The truly unbelievable part was the way our family expanded without breaking. It was the resilience of a quiet boy who taught us about courage. It was the capacity of an ordinary home to become a sanctuary. It was the messy, complicated, redemptive power of showing up, of choosing to love when it's not easy or obligatory. We didn't set out to save anyone. We just answered the door. And in doing so, we found that our family, and our hearts,